was in December. The Navy decided to take this consolidated TBY that was a photography plane, take it out in the South Pacific for taking pictures, aerial pictures. And so they sent them in January, they sent them to Hawaii. Well, they were fighting just after that on Iwo Jima, so the plane had to wait in Hawaii until they got the runway fixed in Iwo Jima so they could land on it. And so there was two crews of them in two planes, and they went to Iwo Jima. Oh, it was in the spring. I'm not sure what, maybe March, something like that. But they were there till they decided to film the southern islands just south of Japan. It's the Marianas Islands. And the Navy wanted to know if they were fortified and how much, I guess you'd say, gun emplacements or whatever that was there, because they were planning an invasion to come in the southern part of Japan, while the Marines were in the north in Okinawa going in to Japan from the north, and they were going to come in from both sides. But see, that was all Navy. So they sent them, and they were well fortified, and they shot the plane down, the one plane. The other one didn't ever go. They just sent the first one, and they shot it down. And that's the one that Eric's grandfather was on. And he was killed in the battle. It wasn't much of a battle, but they did have guns. They had gunners on the sides and in the front of the plane. But it went into the water, and the Lieutenant Commander Wallace was along on the plane just riding because it was his crew, which was Eric's grandfather's commander, that was his crew, and it was a different pilot and co-pilot on there. But they were both killed along with two more gunners, the side gunners. But Wallace came up first out of the water, and there was a rubber inflated raft right there waiting. When he came up, he didn't know where it came from, but it was inflated, and he got in it and started looking to see if there was anybody else had come up, and he found two boys. They were young men, 18 years old, both of them. And so he pulled them into the raft, and the raft had an automatic emergency radio signal of some kind on it, and they had a submarine there to pick them up in a half hour, or they probably would have been captured by the Japanese and put in prison till the end of the war. But the bad part of this whole story is that was the Navy. They were doing Okinawa, and they were going to do the southern part. But all this time, the Army was planning on dropping the atom bomb, and the Navy didn't know it. And that's the thing that has always been a bug in our bonnet, I guess, you could say, about this, that they couldn't, I'm sure they couldn't tell them each other what was going on because of the secrecy over the atom bomb. But it just always seemed like it was just like the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing. And I don't think it's changed much today. And this is, 70 years later.
Wow, is that long?
And they haven't learned anything. Commander Wallace came through Phoenix on his way to California to tell me how it was and everything, and I really appreciated that. But I know he felt terrible that just the three of them got out. But the pilot and the co-pilot probably died in the crash, but Eric's grandfather and another boy that was in there, I can't think of his name, they were back fighting a fire that they'd hit a shell had come in and caught the plane on fire, and so they were trying to put the fire out. And then his grandfather took a shell in his chest, and so he died instantly before the plane ever went down. Yeah, I was carrying Mike, Eric's father. It was 5 months pregnant at the time, but I didn't know anything about it until after he was born. My parents kind of stepped in and took all my mail and telegram and everything and kept it from me till after I had the baby. I guess they wouldn't have worried so much if I hadn't broke my ankle. You know.
Right.
With it. But he was worth it.
I think so.
I was telling Eric about your papa. An aviation machinist mate, first class. Well, that's just a crew with a pilot, was a commander, and the co-pilot didn't go with them. See, that was the other pilot and co-pilot that were in there. Wallace just went along because his boys weren't going to be there. And I guess he had a premonition, I don't know what else. Well, like I said, I think God was looking after him. And I'll tell you something else. When he came through Phoenix, I hadn't had Mike yet, and Jack and Ruth, your great-grandparents, you know, Michael's grandparents, would be Johnny's mother and father, had drove over from San Diego to see us.
Wow.
And they were there. We were all sitting on the porch when Wallace drove up.
And nobody knew anything yet?
Could tell us all this story. And that meant so much to Grandpa Jack. You heard Mike talk about Grandpa Jack.
Yeah.
You know, that, because he'd about killed him. But that just, you know, just kind of tipped it off good. Because not everybody got that lost somebody in the war, and that, you know, a fellow soldier or officer go out of their way to come and tell you about
someone
it.
that was actually involved in
You know, really. But they were real close, a whole bunch of them, and they'd been together for almost 3 years. They really had it easy. They went down to Brown's Field, which is down on the Mexican border, down by Tijuana, and he could still come home at night. But for 2 years, they were down there every day, and they were there for combat training, because they were going to go to Iwo Jima, but they didn't know they were going to blow up the, what do you call it, the runway, so they couldn't go. So then they sent him on to Hawaii, like in December, the end of December. He went to Hawaii, and I come home to Phoenix.